Welcome to Medicated Housewife DIY. In today's DIY video, 5-minute Dollar Tree winter decor easy hacks and DIYs everyone can make on a budget. We are making 4 super easy winter decor DIYs using mostly Dollar Tree supplies. These gorgeous home decor crafts are perfect for budget conscious folks with not a lot of free time. A little rustic and boho sprinkled with some absolutely adorable. These winter decor DIYs will fill your home with snowy winter vibes, so stick around because you're going to love these DIYs. To begin with, I'm using 2 large pine cones from my backyard and 2 Dollar Tree tea lights. I'm also using these clippers that I got on Amazon, which I will link for you below in the description box. These are a game changer for cutting pine cones, which can be very challenging using scissors. These work great for that. I start by snipping off the little petals or whatever those little pieces of pine cone are called. By all means, let me know in the comments the correct name for these little pine cone pieces, but for now I'm going to refer to them as petals. We want to cut these petals off the top, trying to keep them intact as much as possible because we're going to use them later. And then we're going to cut off the middle cone piece to get the remaining pine cone to be a little flatter on top as much as possible. And I know when it looks like I'm having trouble cutting these even with the clippers, just imagine how hard it is without them. That's all I'm saying. Then, using those petal pieces we just cut, we're going to hot glue them all around the side of the tea light like you see me do here. And now normally I wouldn't use hot glue on a candle for obvious reasons, but if you are burning these for short spurts of time, you should be fine without the glue melting. Just keep an eye on them. We need a second row of petals to go around the first one, and we're going to need a spare pine cone just to cut up for parts to get these extra petals, which is what I did right here. Then we're going to simply glue a second row of the petals overlapping that first row of petals in between the 2 petals that are beneath it. We're going to do this until we have a full second row around the whole tea light. Lastly, we're going to take our tea light and hot glue the bottom to our flattened top of the trimmed pine cone right in the center. And I repeated the whole process to make a second one as well. And this is DIY number 1, these beautiful neutral pine cone candles. These are as elegant as they are simple, and I think just perfect for the center of any winter centerpiece, or even just on their own as a pair on a shelf or mantle. A little rustic and very, very pretty. For DIY number 2, I'm using 3 tin cans that I literally pulled out of the recycling bin and some masking tape from the Dollar Tree. I had cleaned the cans and initially spray painted the inside white, although I really didn't need to do that. We're going to transform these cans into winter faux birch tree trunk risers, and I have to give credit to Holly at Hot Humble Pie for the idea of using masking tape instead of craft paper to accomplish this. So thank you, Hot Humble Pie. You guys should check out her channel. She is awesome. We're going to cover all the cans totally with the masking tape, doing about 3 layers of tape, because we need to cover up all those little ridges that are in the metal that's on the cans. And I will say that I think if you can get your hands on some wider masking tape, you'd be better off using that. But this width of tape is what I had, so I had to make that work. You don't need to make the tape smooth either. As a matter of fact, you want some of those wrinkles and imperfections that you get from the tape, because this will all help in our realistic wood log appearance. So neatness does not count here, yay. I also taped up the bottom of the can because that will be the top of our faux log riser, and I taped over the open edge of the can too because I didn't like the way some of that jagged edge of metal looked, and also I didn't want to cut myself. I wanted to make some wood knots for my fake log. Lots of people used crumbled tissue for this and other stuff, but I wanted to try using this just with masking tape. So I crumbled it and I rolled it up, kind of like a pinwheel, and then used more masking tape to attach it to the sides of the birch log on, just so that it would look either like branch stumps or raised knots, all of this helping with the natural looking imperfections. There is no rule while you're making these. You can try out whatever methods you want to, because these branches and knots really do come in all shapes and sizes in nature, so have at it. Next, you can use an X-Acto knife, but all I had was this utility blade. So we're going to make little nicks and cuts all around the logs, just like real birch logs would have. So they're usually all cut and scratched up in nature, and we want to try to create that here. And again, there's no rules. You can cut these as much or as little as you want to. Initially, I painted all 3 logs with a mixture of apple barrel antique white and folk art coffee latte, but when that dried, I hated the color because it basically matched the masking tape. So I don't recommend using those colors. And I ended up painting over all 3 of them again with some plain Waverly white chalk paint, or you can use the Folk Art Home Decor white chalk paint. I will link both for you below, as well as linking all of the non-Dollar Tree items that I use in this video. Once the now white logs had dried, I mixed some Deco Art Black with Folk Art chalk paint in the color Castle, which is a gray color, but I wanted it to be darker, so I added black to it. Then, using a small dry brush, I roughly dry brushed around all of the knots and the branches on that log first, and on top of the knots and branches. Then used a larger dry chip brush to sparingly brush that same gray in a swirl kind of pattern at the top of the logs, like a log would look, and also along the sides of all 3 logs, just randomly going back and forth and distressing all over the 3 logs. Next, I grabbed another dry chip brush and some Folk Art antique wax and did even more dry brushing and distressing over all 3 of the logs, the same as what we did with the gray paint. And as you can see, all of those wrinkles in the tape and the nicks and the cuts that we made earlier really start to show through as we do more and more of this dry brushing. Then I grabbed an old plastic hard-edged card and I dipped the edge of it into the gray paint mixture, and I made a bunch of little nicks around the entire log. All 3 of the logs, actually, really imitating the way that those real birch logs will have all those short little nicks and cuts when you see them in nature. Then we repeat the process with the edge of that card, but we're using the brown antique wax this time. And I do add some of those nicks to the top of the logs too, just to make a real cohesive kind of a thing on a very non-cohesive birch log. And these are DIY number 2, our faux birch log risers. It's amazing how easy it is to get the classic look of birch on something like a tin can. That's a serious upcycle. I think these make gorgeous candle or even plant risers, and this really made me so excited to make more faux birch. So we've all got that to look forward to in the future. We're using another very large pine cone in DIY number 3, also using this jute from the Dollar Tree, and I begin to roll the jute into a pinwheel shape, like a pinwheel circle, using some dabs of hot glue on the top of it because we're only going to use the other side. So we secure it every so often with the hot glue to keep that circle shape. And I'm going to make 2 of these flat jute rolled circles, just about 1.5 inches in diameter, but that's not exact. It doesn't have to be exact, and it also depends on the size of your pine cone. Now we've got our 2 jute circles. We're going to put them aside, and I take this thicker jute twine, also from the Dollar Tree, and this small plastic container that I got from Dollar Tree. And starting under the lip of the container, we're going to wrap the small bowl-shaped container with this thicker jute. And we're going to secure the jute with hot glue every so often, but we want to try our best to only get the glue on that jute and not on the plastic, not on the container, because we want to be able to remove the finished little jute mini bowl we're making here from that plastic container intact. And hopefully that makes sense to you. Once we're finished wrapping, we want to pry that jute bowl off of the container without it coming apart, which takes a little finessing, but eventually I was able to remove it in one piece from that plastic container. With the bowl still intact, basically I just loaded the bottom and sides up with hot glue to make the walls of the bowl secure. And when that glue dried, I applied more glue to the inside walls and stuck the bowl upside down on top of my pine cone, essentially like a little jute twine hat for my pine cone. And then I secured it in place. I attached the 2 small jute circles with hot glue, sort of half on the bottom of the hat and half on the pine cone, so that they looked like eyes or like eyeglasses. Can you guess where we're going with this? I had some of this peach colored felt in my stash, and we cut 2 circles that were smaller than the jute circles that we had made earlier, and we're then going to hot glue each of them to the front of the middle of those jute circles. And I grabbed a couple of these black ball push pin things from Jot. They're from Dollar Tree, and I attempted to push them through the middle of the felt and the jute together to make eyes, but they were hard to push through. So ultimately, we ended up just pushing them through the middle of the felt and then securing that pin part with some hot glue down against the jute circle with a little bit more glue under that black ball to hold it in place on top of the felt. You have to have guessed by now that we are making an adorable owl, and to make the little feathery ear fringy things, and I know that's not the anatomically correct name for whatever that is, to make those little ear fringy things on the top of his head, we're using a piece of Dollar Tree nautical rope folded in half, and the ends of both sides are totally unraveled and fringed out, and I glue the middle of that nautical rope in between the jute eyes and then secure that rope over each of his eyes with some more hot glue. We needed to cut that fringe at an angle with a kind of a pointy top. So really utilizing my very best beauty school dropout skills. And yes, I really am a beauty school dropout. It's a long story. So using my hairstylist skills, I give that fringe a nice trim on both sides and fluff it and give it a little bit of zhuzhing. I took one of those extra pine cone petals, and again, let me know in the comments what the real name for those pine cone pieces actually is, so I won't sound quite so dumb next time. And I glued that right between his eyes to be his little beak, and you don't see it on camera, but I do end up switching out his beak for a larger piece of wood biscuit later on. Grabbing some extra stained wood biscuits I had left over from last week's gingerbread tree video, which I will link below for you, and I glued 2 of them on each side of the owl's body, sort of like the wings. Grabbing a twig from a tree outside, I took 2 small pieces of macrame cord from my stash, and I glue the end of each piece of the cord to the twig, wrapping the macrame cord around the twig 3 times on each side to look like little talons. See, I knew that one. Little talons wrapped around its perch. And this is DIY number 3, our adorable pine cone owl. Oh my gosh, you guys, if this isn't the most precious thing ever, I don't know what is. I've seen other pine cone owls before, but I think this one has amazing rustic but cute appeal. Perfect, easy, and inexpensive neutral winter decor. And if you're still here with me, I want to take a moment to say thank you so much for being here and for watching. Your support means everything to me, and I appreciate you all so, so much. And if you've enjoyed any of these winter decor DIYs, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. It really helps out my channel. DIY number 4 uses 2 of these large white plastic ornaments from Dollar Tree, and I am using this hot knife that I got on Amazon, which I will link for you below, but you can also use an X-Acto knife to cut through these plastic ornaments as well. I used a pencil to mark a circle on the bottom of the ornament that I want to cut out to make this the bottom of my actual project, and so that it will stand up on its own. Then I cut a hole at the top of that very same ornament as well. Meanwhile, I had cut a hole at the bottom of the second ornament so it would fit over the first ornament. I cut it so that the top part of the second ornament was sitting a little to the side and not straight up at the top, and I did this on purpose. I then hot glued the top ornament to the bottom ornament. I cut some strips of white felt from Dollar Tree and I hot glued them to the bottom edge of the bottom ornament, as well as around the seam where the 2 ornaments were glued together. Using a plastic shot glass from Dollar Tree, I used the hot knife to cut out the bottom of the glass, and I had a piece of cardboard from this tiny gift box in my stash that fit over the top of the glass perfectly. I glued it on the top of the shot glass, and I took the top of the gift box to use as a rim for our top hat. Spoiler alert, we are building a top hat for our snowman. So I cut a hole in the rim of our hat, and I glued it to the bottom top, the open bottom top of the shot glass. I covered all the pieces of the top hat using black felt and hot glue, and then cut a tiny strip of red felt to wrap around the brim of the top hat, securing that with some hot glue too. Off camera, we glued the top hat to the top of our second ornament and then used a pencil to sketch out a snowman face and some buttons. We went over all the pencil with some black Sharpie marker, and then we filled in the carrot nose with some orange Sharpie marker. Lastly, we cut a strip of red felt to use as a scarf, tied it around the snowman's head, and cut some fringe at the bottom of both ends of the scarf. We placed a Dollar Tree push or puck light under the ornament, and voila, we have this adorable snowman. Easy to make and such a fun winter decor item for your windowsill, or even a nightlight for a little one. And these are all 4 Dollar Tree winter decor DIYs. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. I love hearing from you. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you here. As always, thanks for watching. My name is Sarah, and I'm the Medicated Housewife, and crafting is my medication.